Thanks for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and check out my Instagram for cool science and not science stuff. Welcome back to Biochemistry on Catalyst University. My name is Kevin Tokoph. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for future videos and notifications. In this video, we're hopefully going to answer the question as to why we get tired after a Thanksgiving turkey dinner. And it's no secret that turkey does contain a lot of tryptophan. But then again, so does beef, so does chicken, so does lamb. Even milk contains a lot of tryptophan. So does a turkey dinner actually make you physiologically tired and sleepy? Well, we're going to answer that by saying sort of. It's a 50-50. And that 50-50 is broken down into two parts. The first part is fairly simple and probably a dissatisfying answer. About 50% of the contribution as to why you're tired after a Thanksgiving dinner doesn't actually have to do as much with the turkey. It has to do with everything else that goes with it. It's no secret that Thanksgiving dinners are loaded with carbs. I can't exactly say what these two dishes are back here, but you can clearly see that the turkey is stuffed with stuffing, and stuffing is loaded with carbs. So in the end, what happens is you eat a lot of carbs, and that tends to spike your insulin levels. And when you get spiked insulin levels like that, it would make anybody tired. So that's 50% of it, and probably a dissatisfying answer. Here's the other 50% of it, where it is kind of true that the turkey does, in fact, make you tired in conjunction with that first reason. But to understand that, let's take a look at the biosynthetic pathway for melatonin, which actually does come from tryptophan. First, tryptophan is decarboxylated by this enzyme, aromatic amino acid decarboxylase, or AADC. You can see here that this alpha carboxyl group has been removed as carbon dioxide, and that generates tryptamine. Then tryptamine hydroxylase takes this position right there, right where my mouse is, and it adds an OH group, or a hydroxyl group. When you add a hydroxyl group right there on that benzene ring, you get serotonin. Serotonin is, of course, associated with good feelings, all warm and fuzzy, right? But the biosynthetic pathway doesn't stop there. Serotonin can then react with serotonin N-acetyltransferase, which takes this amine group right here and adds an acetyl group onto that. That gives us N-acetylserotonin. And then finally, this last enzyme, this O-methyltransferase, takes this hydroxyl group that was added through tryptamine hydroxylase on the benzene ring, and it methylates it. So you can see now a methyl group on that oxygen. And this structure right here, this is melatonin. So yes, melatonin does come from tryptophan. And it is known that if you consume a lot of tryptophan, and most people do consume a lot of turkey, that a lot of that tryptophan will eventually convert to melatonin, and the melatonin can make you tired. But this is a little more complicated than even that. Let's take a look at this part of the diagram. Down here I have the gut. Of course, when we consume the turkey dinner, all that food has to travel through our digestive tract, particularly to the small intestine, and those nutrients can then be absorbed into the blood. Now, here I just have shown glucose because we do have a lot of carbs in the Thanksgiving dinner, amino acids, and tryptophan, or TRP. Now, yes, tryptophan is an amino acid, but by amino acids here, I'm really considering the other 19. I'm sort of grouping tryptophan out of that. And of course, those are absorbed from the small intestine into the blood, and then they move throughout the body, and will ultimately be taken up by neurons, because as we know, melatonin is released through neurons. So tryptophan would have to be taken up and then converted into melatonin. Now, along the way, through the blood, glucose and amino acids to some extent, but especially the glucose, are going to stop off at the pancreas, and the beta cells of the pancreas are going to detect the level of glucose in the blood. And the amino acids for that matter. Don't forget that the beta cells are also sensitive to amino acids. Well, of course, the Thanksgiving dinner is loaded with both of those, especially glucose. And in fact, it's the release of insulin by the beta cells of the pancreas as a result of this glucose that contribute to that insulin crash. And that's the first 50% of why we get tired. But as we talked about, that glucose, the amino acids, and tryptophan, they can be taken up by neurons, and in particular the tryptophan can be converted to melatonin. But there's one little problem with that, and it's actually more of a problem at the interface between the gut and the blood with getting these molecules absorbed. It turns out that amino acid transporters don't have absolute specificity, meaning one transporter can transport a multitude of amino acids from the gut to the blood. Meaning tryptophan is going to have to compete with other amino acids. So even if you eat a big Thanksgiving dinner, the amount of tryptophan that you actually get would normally be limited. So for example, if you ate nothing else and just took a tryptophan supplement, you may not actually get a huge amount of tryptophan absorbed into the blood and therefore going to the brain. So it's pretty handy that that Thanksgiving dinner also contains a lot of glucose, because as we mentioned, the glucose can stop off at the pancreas and the beta cells then release insulin. Now, why is that important? Because insulin not only has effects on making us have a crash, but it also has important functions throughout the body, like upregulating receptors that help uptake nutrients. So insulin can act in a multitude of places, and you get more transporters. Notice what's happened here. Now we have more transporters for glucose, and more importantly, more amino acid transporters. We have those from the gut to the blood, and ultimately into the neurons. Now, why is that important? Because remember, before, if we just had kind of a baseline level of transporters, tryptophan had to compete with other amino acids. Well, if we have more transporters, is tryptophan having to compete as much? No, it's not having to compete as much with the other amino acids. So therefore, we can get more tryptophan taken up into the blood, and we can get more tryptophan into these specific neurons. And if these neurons get more tryptophan, well, they're going to do something with it, right? And they're going to convert it to other things, like serotonin and in particular here, melatonin. So yes, there is some truth to the fact that the turkey dinner makes us tired because turkey contains lots of serotonin. But don't forget that contribution of the carbs in a Thanksgiving dinner, the sugars. Yes, the insulin gives us a crash, but the insulin also upregulates these transporters, which makes it less likely that these amino acids will compete with tryptophan. You get more tryptophan, and you get more melatonin. So hopefully that was kind of a fun video that explains that yes, it is somewhat true that turkey dinners do make us tired, but it is not entirely the turkey that does that. It also helps to have a lot of those carbs that go with it as well. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for future videos and notifications. Thank you.